The Vatican was connected to Operation Paperclip, and Operation Paperclip was connected to, well, a lot. I'm not an expert on this, but I found it interesting, and I thought maybe you would too. And if you find it interesting, you can do a deep dive or find somebody else who did. I had never heard of the Vatican Ratlines, but that's not surprising since I really was not interested until recently in World War II. The Ratlines were clandestine escape routes used by Yahtzee officials and collaborators to flee Europe after World War II, often to South America, the Middle East, or the US. And yes, I said Yahtzee because that's just how it has to work. Now, some of the high-ranking clergy in the Catholic Church, especially within the Vatican, helped organize and facilitate these routes. But why would they do that? Well, many in the Vatican were strongly anti-communist and feared Soviet expansion more than harboring Yahtzees. Now, Operation Paperclip was a secret U.S. intelligence program to recruit Yahtzee scientists and bring them to America, particularly those with expertise in rocketry, aviation, medicine, and chemical warfare. And here's how they linked together. Many Yahtzee scientists and officials used Vatican-supported Ratlines to evade prosecution at Nuremberg, or disappeared long enough for Western intelligence agencies, like the OSS, that later became the CIA, to scrub their records. Now, once their records were cleaned, they were secretly integrated into Western countries. Some went to South America, others were quietly handed over to US or UK intel, where their expertise was just too valuable to ignore. The Vatican's diplomatic immunity, its widespread networks, and its ability to issue falsified Red Cross travel documents made it a critical hub for those operations. So why did the US and the Vatican work together on this? Well, they were more worried about communism and the Soviet Union than they were about being morally compromised by using Yahtzee scientists. Of course, many of these connections were classified for decades. But declassified agency documents, Red Cross files, and the Vatican correspondences have since confirmed that the US and UK knowingly recruited individuals with direct ties to Yahtzee war crimes. We also know that Catholic officials helped facilitate those escapes. These networks often overlapped, working together to protect the useful Yahtzees. So who are these useful men? Well, one was Joseph Mingla, who did some horrific things. He used the Vatican and Red Cross documentation and passed through Genoa and sailed to South America. He lived in Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil under false names and was never captured. Of course, Werner von Braun, brought to the U.S. under Operation Paperclip. He became a key architect of NASA and helped land men on the moon. And he is still a controversial figure, for some reason, celebrated for his technical genius despite war crimes. But I guess when you're useful. We also have Arthur Rudolph, who was also brought to the U.S. via Paperclip and worked at NASA. He was quietly deported in 1984 when his past became public. And then there was old Hubertus Strughold, and I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but who cares? He was brought to the U.S. under Paperclip as well, and became known as the father of space medicine. And there were a lot of men that worked for the Yahtzees that were brought to the U.S. and put into positions of power. And by power, I mean high-ranking jobs. High-ranking jobs in medicine, science, and intelligence. And it is absolutely no surprise to me that right after this all happens, we just sail right into Project MK Ultra.